Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Goeiedag. A very good day to you, Molweni, wherever you are, and welcome to another episode of Life Matters. And we understand that both Life Matters, we deal with parenting and health, where wellness meets purpose, I hope to think. Joining me on the shows of Life Matters is an array of experts on this journey of health and parenting to unlock your full potential as an individual holistically, cultivating resilience and nurturing your mind, body and soul. We'll explore the transformative power of healthy living on Life Matters and discover the incredible possibilities that could await you, which you didn't know you had. Life is precious and your health in every way matters. Today our conversation is around children who are affected by poor balance, how to identify and treat signs of possible clumsiness and coordination in children. Joining me is Waheeda Essop, an experienced occupational therapist and no stranger to this platform. She's guided us previously on correct posture, and that was a very interesting show because we're always sitting in front of our laptops, whether it's on the bed, in front of a desk, our kids working on their laptops, studying to hopefully circumvent possible back problems, and an enlightening series as well during Ramadan on Salah and the benefits of its movements, so which you can all find on our YouTube channel. It was definitely an enlightening show. And so she joins us again today. Waheeda is an accomplished occupational therapist with over 20 years of experience. She's passionate about unlocking children's potential and empowering parents through education like today's show. Her expertise spans from vocational assessments, childhood development, as well as leadership. So let's start by understanding what clumsiness means and how it affects children's daily lives. Do interact with us. We love how you make the show. Our WhatsApp line and social media pages are available, as well as an email address, which you can also find at the bottom of our screens. And do connect with us in any way possible that you have questions from your side. We can pose it to her later and hopefully do a follow-up show. So Waheeda will share her valuable insights on this topic. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to our studios, our new set, Waheeda. Every time you come back, there's something new, inshallah. So it's a pleasure.
Salam. Oh, it's so nice having being back here again. And I want to commend you on your good posture.
Oh, I'm trying. You know, when the camera goes on, there's this, like they say, a switch that flicks inside of me.
Yes.
Okay. Now you need to present yourself.
That's good. That's good.
So I try, and I think it's something that you know, you try all the time as a child as well. You know,
True.
and that show that you did, it sticks with me.
Yeah.
So I remember Waheeda's words vividly when it comes to sitting up correctly. I even got myself a little thing under my laptop that lifts my laptop up.
Lovely.
And I don't know where I found it. I just want to get more. So you've got to tell us where we can find those things. I think, Waheeda, this is a topic that actually came from a viewer.
Okay.
It was a concern by him about actually many months ago, and I thought, you know what, I need to cover this topic: clumsiness, coordination, poor balance in children. What is that? Where does it come from? But also, as an occupational therapist, I think a lot of people don't know what you people do as an OT. So let's just quickly clear the air. What does an occupational therapist do? You know, who are her clients? And let's hopefully talk about this clumsiness, poor balance and coordination topic, inshallah.
Okay, awesome. Occupational therapy is the treatment of people with some kind of either physical, cognitive, I'm going to say either impairment or a more severe disability, where they are unable to fulfill the roles in their life. So we treat people to make them independent and functional in all aspects of their life. And our medium of treatment is through activity. So that's in a nutshell what OT is. It's a very broad profession. In other words, there's a lot of different areas you can specialize in. And yeah, so my main work is in vocational rehabilitation or assessments, and that specifically focuses on work and on a person's ability to work. And one of my other passions are in pediatrics.
Yeah, because you've got your own online store.
Toy store, yes.
Store, yes.
Having lots of fun with that, yes.
I know. When I see you at the expos, you and your hubby and the kids are there setting up. And
it's the fun part of my OT work, yes.
Lots of toys. And my kids loved going to OT because there's lots of toys and things to play around with.
No.
So it's a fun
place
blame
as
them.
Well. It's awesome.
Great. So let's look at the primary causes of clumsiness in children and how common it is.
Okay, so clumsiness, I'm going to refer to it as sort of mild clumsiness.
Okay.
And that's the child that usually, drops things. And, the child that you, when you send them with a cup of tea, okay, that tea is not going to really, all of it's not going to make it to the person. Oh. So, or it's
even
the
on
child
the saucer?
that, yes.
Okay.
A lot of it may be there.
Okay.
Or it's the child that, may bump into things or just, fall, and they're not the best at sports. Okay. So they struggle with coordination. They also, the child that's not always very confident when it comes to climbing things and doing physical kind of activities. So I'm gonna group that child as a child that is a bit clumsy, and the reason I'm saying mild clumsiness is that if it's not mild, if there's more difficulties that a child is having, then we just need to look deeper as to why they are having that. As with regard to the cause of it, so remember, every individual, every child, when they are born, they develop, and we develop all of our areas in our body. Our brain develops, our senses develop, and we all familiar with terms like gross motor development, fine motor, cognitive development, language development, and all of that is important for a child to basically partake in different aspects of their life. When you have a clumsy child, you usually have a child that there's where there's an area in their most likely motor development. So when I say motor, I'm referring to both your fine motor and your gross motor, where there's maybe a slight delay. In other words, where that child is at the moment is not on par, as he's not on par with his peers. Okay. So he wouldn't be as coordinated or as good at that particular skill as his peers.
So this child that you're talking about sounds like me when I was in primary school. In fact, I don't even run today because I feel that I'm clumsy. I'll run over my feet, but I probably can run. Just like the subconscious thing that's...
Yes.
So this child that you're talking about, what age is this child about?
Okay, so look, obviously your very young child is very they're going through the motions of various gross motor milestones. So that's the toddler, and your 3-year-old. I'm talking, so usually by the time a child is around 6 years, they have a lot of skills that they would have developed by then. So simple hopping, jumping with 2 feet off the ground, skipping, riding a bike. So if a child, is a little clumsy around those kind of skills, I would say, they're looking at a clumsy child, but you can get a clumsy adult. So that can, if a child's not going to stimulate, or that individual is not going to work on that clumsiness, they're gonna end up a clumsy adult.
Okay. How do you assess clumsiness in children? What is the process?
Okay, so from an occupational therapy side, we usually do an assessment of their overall development. Okay. Right. The reason we do an overall development assessment is that so you know, in the body, everything is related, and everything, especially motor development, comes from the brain, and the different areas in the brain are also connected. So if a child presents with motor difficulties, which is, in this case, it's mild motor difficulties, but we wanna look at where it's actually coming from. So we would assess their skills, but we would also assess what we call sort of their sensory processing ability, because that refers to aspects like a person's proprioception skills. So in other words, if I put my hand out, I know my hand is there without actually having to look. Or if I sit down on a chair, I don't have to actually turn around and look. So it's basically knowing where my body is in space, my spatial awareness, my spatial perceptual skills, and then I would also look at the specific skills that are needed for that particular age group. And usually that's, you know, a fairly comprehensive assessment when it comes to occupational therapy, looking at clumsiness.
Now, how do and just quickly in a minute, how can parents, I think, educate themselves in picking up some telltale signs when your child is possibly clumsy, if your child's possibly clumsy or have poor coordination?
I think it's in their view of avoidance of that kind of motor skills. So usually when you're not good at something, you don't want to do it. So doesn't like to really play outside, and that's not because they want to play with the screen. They avoid kind of physical activities at school. They don't really like sports. They basically, when they are forced to do it, they basically don't look they look awkward. They don't appear to have very good coordination, and yeah, I think that would be your main sort of telltale sign to say, listen, maybe my child's got a bit of a coordination problem.
And you sort of test them, like throw something at them, or
yeah. You know what? Yeah, testing is a bit difficult, but the best thing for parents to do, especially if your child is young, is I'm talking about sort of under now 7 years, is you to use general milestone checklists. Right. So if a child...
We'll go through that list just after the short break. Waheeda, thank you so much for expounding on the complexities of clumsiness. We'll talk more after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. A very good day to you. This is Life Matters, where we strive to delve into the essence of well-being, exploring expert advice and some personal stories, as well as practical tips to empower you to take control of your ultimate journey on this earth. Now, early identification and intervention can significantly improve coordination and balance in children. And children who receive occupational therapy also show improved fine motor skills, balance and coordination. Now that we understand a little bit basics of clumsiness, and I rudely interrupted Waheeda before the show as she detailedly explained to us, you know, what clumsiness is. Waheeda, our occupational therapist, let's dive into effective now strategies for improvement. Waheeda will share her expert advice on exercise and activities to possibly enhance balance and coordination. So Waheeda, just before the break, we spoke about, you know, that fine motor skills and gross motor skills. Is there a chart where parents can go to? Do they need to go and see an OT, visit the clinic for these basic details?
So I think general milestones are quite accessible. I did put one together for my website as well. So it basically goes through from 0 years to 6 years, but you do get a milestone checklist for older ages as well. So yeah, so if a parent is unsure and you're a bit worried about your child's coordination and you think it can be improved, or there may be an underlying problem, go to the milestone checklist and just have a look. And specifically for coordination and balance, you would look at the gross motor milestones and your fine motor milestones.
So is there a difference between clumsiness and other possible conditions, or do they present as well when it comes to clumsiness?
So what happens with clumsiness as a condition was actually, I was actually just telling you about that. It was an actual disorder in the old DSM-4 or DSM criteria checklist for conditions, medical conditions. And it's now evolved where it is now called developmental coordination disorder.
Okay.
And that refers to an individual that has coordination difficulties, but to the point where it affects their functioning. So in a child, it would mean that they are not achieving their developmental milestones, but at the same time, they are not achieving success in their scholastic performance, in their home abilities, like tasks that they have to do, or any task that requires motor coordination. So that is actually the sort of the medical term, the current medical term for having a serious sort of clumsiness problem.
Okay, so that would need to be assessed.
That would have to
properly.
be assessed because you want to find out what is the underlying cause for that. And often what happens is that clumsiness is there, but there is an underlying problem that's actually causing the clumsiness. And that's what your practitioner would then look into and assess.
Okay, so before we even identify possible clumsiness, are there possibly, activities or practices parents can, incorporate to coordinate balance and, any coordination to strengthen, as we always talk, because I've gone to the OT with my kids and they talk a lot about the core.
Yes.
So is it around strengthening the core when it comes to, these practices?
Yes, definitely the core. But what I'm going to do is I want to quickly go through with you the different age groups, because obviously you can't do core exercises now, showing a baby how to do that. So I want to give you a few sort of activities per sort of age group that I think all parents, I think parents do these usually, but it would just enlighten us with regard to the value of those particular activities. The one thing when it comes to babies, okay, so I'm talking about newborns, going up until they, even if they are almost like a year old. Tummy time.
Tummy time. Oh.
Okay, so everybody knows about tummy time, but the tummy time is your first core activity essentially. So it develops that, but it also develops your shoulders, it develops your neck control, and remember, we want coordination, right? We want to develop gross motor skills. We want to develop those kind of movements where we're looking at almost the distal part, in other words, the parts of our body that's sort of at the end of our body. But to do that, we need to develop the center. Okay. So the center needs to have control in order for the limbs to then be coordinated. So you won't get that if you don't have a good core. So when moms are worried about their baby and they haven't achieved X, Y, and Z, all I say to them, and they ask, what toys can I get from you? And I say, you know what? I'm a very bad businesswoman, as you can see. Just put your baby on his tummy.
I'm not selling anything to you.
Put your baby, you can, whatever toys you have at home, put it around them so that they have the toys there and they're going to want to reach out to the toys, but put your baby on their tummy. So that's key. Then when babies are now baby, where you can literally now throw them up. Throwing them up is so nice.
Oh my goodness.
It's actually very important because it's really developing their vestibular sense.
Oh my goodness, I can't believe a medical practitioner is...
I'm not saying being wild, and I'm not saying drop them.
Okay.
So,
No, but you can gently
just that
throw
whole
them.
action is actually very good for them. It's very good for their vestibular and what they call your development of your movement sense. So remember, you have a whole lot of senses, and one of them is actually your movement sense.
Okay.
So that develops that. Another thing that
Daddies love doing that.
Yes.
And then I've had that once where my hubby loved doing it,
Yes.
and my son actually threw up on him.
Oh, shame.
So don't do it after
Okay, not
feeding.
after
Darren.
feeding,
Yeah.
not immediately after feeding.
Yeah.
You know, and also do it because then you get kiddies that are crying when you do it, right?
Yeah.
So if they do cry, I would like just do a very slower, but still do the
Okay.
movement, but to do it when they are happy. Make sure they are maybe not well fed, but they're not
slept.
hungry
Yeah.
or tired, and they or maybe they just had a nice bath, that kind of thing.
If I can just ask you about that, because I find that, just jumping also up on a trampoline, you get this sensation, almost like a butterfly sensation, like an emptiness. What is happening in the baby's core, if you could explain to us, for that matter, when they are moving up in the air like that?
Okay, so with the movement up in the air, it's more about the movement and the movement developing the sense, the vestibular sense.
Okay.
So your control or your development of movement stems in your sort of your inner ear, and that moves that makes connections with the brain, and the movement of the head is, and that's essentially what develops movement, but also balance.
Okay.
Right. Yes, that movement does also stimulate muscles, but the tummy time is something more that is something that's more important for that kind of muscle strengthening or core strengthening for baby. But we want to develop the vestibular sense, because that is what assists your gross motor movements. That's what assists coordination. That's what assists with balance. Okay. So that's where we're going. The other activity, which is going to be another frown, because it's basically rough play, especially with like your toddlers.
Okay.
And I know, like, okay, we'll do like a tickling session, right? Which is also really great. But that kind of rough play where you take the child and you throw him around and you basically tumble with them, and it actually develops, it develops remember we said we have your outer senses, which is what you see, what you hear, your taste, your smell, and then you have your inner senses, which is your movement and your proprioception, and that kind of and that's very important for developing your body, not your self-image, but your body image, or your spatial development, where you know where your body is in space. So at this moment, for example, I know exactly where the pillow is behind me.
Yes.
I know where the laptop is. I know it's not now half shifting off me.
Yes.
I know
you feel
all of
that
that.
coordination and that balance.
Yes. Because the reason I know that is because, remember, our skin is made up of sensory receptors. And it's in every cell of our body. And when we are in contact with something, we have what we call sensory input. And that sensory input goes, it happens here, I'm doing this, but that information is then going from there to my brain, and it's telling me exactly what's happening. So when you are playing with a child and you're doing that kind of a rough play, you actually are developing there those areas or those sensory or receptors, and that area that you need.
Yeah, you're awakening,
Yes.
the reality that's happening around
Yes.
there. Okay.
And you're also preventing what we call sort of sensory modulation. People that have severe sensory issues when they get older, mild or severe, but you're also preventing that from happening.
And these are valuable techniques that we don't realize that we do possibly all the time,
Yes.
and how it's actually benefiting our child. So thank you, Waheeda, for sharing that, and I hope we're taking heed that sometimes that rough play, and unfortunately that throwing off their child is actually a good thing. Remember, every child is unique, and consistency is also key. So if you're doing this, do it consistently, inshallah. In our next segment, we'll discuss adapting daily life activities with these in mind to support the children's that possibly have, clumsiness. Don't forget to interact with us via our WhatsApp line and social media pages as well. Stay tuned. Back in a moment. Welcome back. Now, every moment counts in your child's life, like every choice matters. We pray that today's show will hopefully inspire and educate you to make more informed decisions about your child's well-being. And we're talking about how to treat and possibly identify clumsiness, poor balance and coordination in children. But as our occupational mentioned, it's actually been diagnosed as development coordination disorder. Now, did you know that clumsiness can impact your child's daily routine, from dressing to playing on the playground? Hopefully, Waheeda will offer some practical tips, as she did previously in the segment, on adapting to these tasks to support our children's development. Now, Waheeda Essop is our seasoned occupational therapist and entrepreneur dedicated to enhancing children's lives with her expertise in medico-legal assessment as well, and testimony added to that as an expert witness. Now, Waheeda will bring us valuable insights to this conversation today. Do interact with us as well with any possible questions or comments. So, Waheeda, let's look at sensory integration through the play. You've mentioned that, that spatial awareness of the child, and this is as a young child to know, and it also then helps them develop later. So that rough play, that throwing up, the tickling. I want to also look at exercises that possibly can help with balance, and at what age can you identify whether this child has a balance issue?
Okay, so I think in terms of figuring that out, again, I'm going to send you back to the milestones, because at a child, for example, at 3 years, I may be mistaken, can stand on one leg for, say, 10 seconds.
Okay.
I'm assuming, I could be wrong. But it's that kind of thing, because if, for example, you are expecting now a child to stand on their leg with their older child and they're not standing, you're going to worry. So use the guidelines or the milestone checklist as a guide for you to check on that. When we speak about balance, the other thing that comes up is something called gravitational insecurity. And that's usually, it's also what we call a sensory related issue, because remember, it's about your vestibular sense, and it's got to do with all of those inner senses we spoke about. But essentially what it is that you are afraid of being higher above, or sort of climbing on a higher surface, and you have that fear. And that's usually because a child is not secure in their own sense, or their own vestibular development hasn't been, I'm not going to say has been poor, but they possibly haven't been exposed to that kind of activity or task where they were allowed to develop that area. I know you have people with a fear of heights, so that a gravitational insecurity can get to a point where a person grows up and they actually cannot handle any kind of heights. And you often find that people that have grown up in an environment possibly with poor economic circumstance, or a poor, a crowded home, poor exposure to a lot of other activities, or stimulation, limited stimulation. It's a common factor, because they just haven't had the chance to actually develop that area.
So that does also limit the possible activities that the child could be exposed to at home, to be able to enhance these motor skills. So let's talk about, for those parents that are able to assist when your child, and also what concerns should you present to the daycare center or the schools if you are putting your child in, because of course you may be practicing tummy time at home because it just needs the floor and the bed, for instance, but you don't know what's happening at the day school. So can you maybe just guide us on what to ask the day mother or the play school, what their settings are like?
Yes. So I think knowing what the school or the center's program is like. So most of them have that. What they often do is they have sometimes have outside activities that they offer, so additional extra activities that they offer. But even in their normal program, it is quite essential that they include activities, whether these are outdoor or just physical activities that is done indoor. So it's important to check with them, what are you doing? Or the time allocated to it.
Okay.
Right. How much of time? Because kids those are young kids, and they should spend sort of less time with workbooks and drawing and coloring, and a lot of time with actual physical play. So that's what you want, and then to also just have a look at the actual school environment, because they do have their break times, and what is there for them to do in that time? Is there a jungle gym? You can look at the area, what is available. What's also very nice to check on is what kind of sensory play do they offer? Okay. So, do they have a sandbox? Do they include that in? Because I know with some of the Montessori schools, for example, they have a segment where they've got to make jelly, or they've got to find, kids have to find things inside a bowl of rice, or there's water play, or there's baking. Remember, cooking and baking are lovely for developing not just the skills, but also developing certain sensory things, because you've got the dough, and you've got the sugar, you've got the different textures. So it's important to check on if the school does offer that kind of thing.
And what role does, in the sensory play, coordination help with interacting with their peers? How does that assist? Because I mean, you have the children interacting with each other all the time, but if you have one child that the teacher might not identify is not interacting with everybody, or doesn't like the way this child speaks, or how this child, what question should you be asking the teacher?
So I think that's something that it would depend on that child. So if that child is having now coordination difficulties, there's a likelihood that he's going to avoid a lot of the things, right? So you want to know. You want the teacher to basically be very sort of open with you, and also give you a lot of feedback. So if he's, for example, avoiding certain activities, where he's making up an excuse, or he is doing the activities, but the teacher can clearly see that, he's not liking it, number one, or he's not very good at it. You want the teacher then to give you that kind of
How often should you have these sort of conversations? Once a month, okay? Once a term? Should you check in once a week?
I think just the teachers do have a lot of kids in the class, and to get like a monthly feedback on every child is quite a bit. But I would say be upfront with the teacher to say, listen, I'm the type of parent, I want to know what's happening. If there's a mild problem, because the biggest challenge that I think the teachers have is parents don't want to know.
Yes.
So when also being a therapist, and having done a lot of work at preschools, and having a good network of principals or teachers at preschools, that was their biggest challenge. Is like, this child has a problem, but the mom doesn't want to hear it. So I think maybe from a teacher side to actually be upfront with parents at the beginning, to say that, listen, if there's I'm not going to say problems, because if you say the word problem, it sounds worse. If there's challenges with your child, I'm going to tell you about it, but I want a response. Just to make some kind of upfront arrangement to say that you're going to get a response from the parent when you do tell them, and then as a parent, you tell the teacher, listen, I want to know what's happening. If there's something, even if it's mild, and you think I can improve that aspect with my child, please tell me.
Absolutely, and I think always on every level, with your child's at preschool, daycare, or day mother, or
Yes.
you know, at school, have that interaction with the parent, because at the with the teacher.
Yes.
At the end of the day, it's your child. You want to help them develop in the best way possible. Shukran so much, Waheeda, for that actionable advices and guidance. I want to look at chores maybe just after the short break, inshallah. But by making small adjustments, parents can absolutely significantly improve their child's quality of life, and that small adjustments can be just asking the teacher questions. In our final segment, we'll discuss next steps and resources for further support. Don't forget our WhatsApp line and social media pages. And if you've missed any of our shows, you can also tell your family, friends to watch it right now, wherever they are in the world, on Hilaal.tv. Back in a moment. Welcome back to Life Matters, because every life does matter. Did you know that 1 in 5 children struggle with clumsiness, impacting their self-esteem? Yes, you know, who they are, how they present themselves, and also their academic performance. 90% of brain development occurs before the age of 5, and that's why we focus so much on early childhood development. Now, making early intervention, which is absolutely crucial for motor skill development and neuroplasticity, which allows the child's brain to rewire and adapt. Yes, that's a new word we've got to learn and understand. When we're thinking of reconnecting, it's also improving the motor skills with the targeted practices that we've spoke about a little bit earlier. So get ready as we transform you with the information that we have on Life Matters, and ultimately want the optimal wellness for you and your children and their growth. Together, we understand that conversations like this makes our community, makes your child thrive. So now let's focus on the next steps and resources for parents. Waheeda will share some guidance on seeking professional help and community support where needed. So now, Waheeda, let's focus on that. What are the telltale signs that we need to know that, hey, I need to go and make an assessment or visit the clinic, because we've spoken to the teacher, we've spoken to some of the friends, and just I feel right now my child needs some sort of intervention. When should that happen?
So I'm going to go back to the definition of that disorder, the new definition for the new wording for clumsiness, which is basically the developmental coordination disorder.
Okay.
And that basically refers to children of normal intelligence that have no identifiable medical or neurological condition, but have difficulties with that interfere with their academic performance or affect their socialization. And that is basically what is then referred to as your DCD, or developmental coordination disorder. So, so if, for example, a child is having coordination difficulties, balance issues, you know, he falls often, and it is affecting his performance at school. It's affecting his overall development. It's affecting his socialization. Then I would look for help. Right. Then, if you're not sure what this is, some of the other red flags or things that we would definitely say to a parent, please take your child to a pediatrician or a GP or an OT if you're just not sure. And one of them is, the one main thing is not achieving milestones. But when I say not achieving milestones, your child's 12 months and they don't walk is not a sign that they're not achieving the milestone, right? However, if they're 18 months or 16 months and they're still not walking or close to walking, then I would go to a professional. The other thing would be deterioration of function. So they were able to do something. They were able to do a particular skill, and now they're not able to, right? That's another sign. And then weakness. So it's almost like so just a weakness where a sudden onset of weakness, right? Or any kind of abnormal movement. Okay, so a movement that like a slight tremor that happens maybe in the hand,
twitch or something.
or something that is mild, or something that's a bit more obvious. Any kind of abnormal movement is when you want to get help. Right. What I want to just touch on here is I'm sure everybody knows about muscle tone, postural tone, and that usually it affects you, it affects your mildly clumsy child, but it also affects children with other more serious issues. And muscle tone is basically that resistance that we have naturally in our muscles, and it's what keeps our bodies upright, basically. So it's muscle tone that's keeping us in this position. It's muscle tones that allow us to actually sit with a good posture. And you do get people that have a low muscle tone, and it's also one of the causes of what appears like clumsiness, because those children are a bit, they tend to bump into things, and they never sit right. They have difficulty with maintaining sort of that like a static posture.
Do they struggle maybe catching a ball, for instance, if you throw this?
Yes. So again, that will then affect all of their coordination, their balance, their posture, and it will affect then their skills, like tying shoelaces, or handwriting. Handwriting is a telltale sign. Yeah. So in our house, we actually all have really the most horrible handwritings. And
you're saying there's a muscle tone issue.
And I want to just say, I want to blame it on muscle tone, but I think it's just a genetic thing. Yes, they do. But the reason being is that remember, muscle tone affects every muscle of your body. It affects your eye muscles. So if you look at reading, when you read, your eye has to move across, right? And it's muscles that actually do that. So it can affect that. It also affects, as I said, the hands. The reason being is that you have your small muscles in your hand, but when it comes to handwriting, you need these muscles and these muscles and these muscles, as well as your shoulder muscles. Everybody, this to stabilize, this to stabilize, and then you want this to work. So, and then kiddies are writing for a long period of time. So they've got to write, but they've got to write for a whole half an hour, and then their hand, that muscle gets tired. So it's not a low muscle tone. I would look into it. I would go to an OT, but it's not necessarily a red flag to say that your child has now a serious coordination problem, or they have something underlying that's there. But I would also check it out.
So with all of that, possibly presenting, what are some of the myths that you can say and identify possible misconceptions, old wives' tales, if it does come to that, about clumsiness in children?
Clumsiness is genetic, and that's actually true, because if somebody has a low muscle tone, or they just have poor coordination, they don't have the best coordination, there is a good chance that your child, because of your genetic makeup, and it comes from your parents, you may not have the best coordination. And it's the same for the other way. So if you have good genes and you have great coordination skill, and if you look at like professional sportsmen, they are amazing, because they have on another level, coordination, balance, speed, and there's a likelihood that their child would have those skills and acquire because of their genetic makeup.
Good to know.
So yes,
we have to quickly wrap up. Our time's running up. I want to look at some possible home exercises, resources, support groups where parents can latch on, maybe even chores to implement in your daily life to hopefully get your child to that sporty type of individual that you wish they were. If that's maybe in your genes, so maybe just to circumvent that.
Okay. quickly. So my most important thing with developing their coordination and their overall skill is activity participation. Right. So that's going to be something that's age appropriate.
Okay.
So you're not going to give a toddler to ask them to set the table.
Yes.
So you wanna make it age appropriate. But if a child, for example, is now clumsy, has coordination difficulties, you also want to start on their level. So you're not going to give a child that has now really is clumsy, has coordination problems, and you're going to let them go and play a sports, or going to go into a tournament or something like that. Yeah. You're gonna start off slowly and expose them. But the important thing with this is actually to allow successful participation. So when you give any child an activity to do, it must be something that they want to do, right? But they must have success in it. So as a parent, it is a bit difficult to kind of figure that out. Yeah. But if you keep this in mind when you do, you want to stimulate your child, and you decide, okay, listen here, forcing your child to sign up for netball wouldn't be the best thing. Okay. However, let's have a family day and we go to the paddle courts, okay? And we just run around, and we're just going to run around, and we're going to have lunch after that. Yeah. And we're going to start slowly. Okay. So just remember that. And when the child has fun, he has the poorest coordination, but he's having fun. Yes. That's where you're going to start from that point.
All right. Unfortunately, that's where we have to leave it, Waheeda.
No problem.
I hope to see you soon. Inshallah, we can make a date for Ramadan. We're hoping to do a follow-up show for our Hifz students to help them benefit with your knowledge, inshallah. Looking forward to that. All the best till we chat again. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Shukran so much to Waheeda for her expertise and passion that shows through in helping everyone. Clumsiness is not just a physical issue. It affects emotional well-being and even the child's self-confidence. Every child deserves that support and understanding when they're having an issue. If you or someone you know is struggling with clumsiness, poor balance and coordination, reach out to a healthcare professional or visit your nearest clinic. Every child has the potential to overcome this possible clumsiness and thrive with the right support. Now, parents can improve their child's balance by encouraging about 30 minutes of outdoor play daily, breaking tasks into smaller steps and providing positive reinforcements, enhancing their motor skills development, asking them to lay the table, as Waheeda mentioned, let them carry the laundry basket to the washing machine. Movement is a powerful tool for learning, so let's use it. Every child deserves to experience its benefits. Every small step towards self-care is a victory. Remember to subscribe to any of our shows for more enlightening conversations. Join us next time for more empowering shows. Until then, stay informed and stay holistically healthy, mind, body and soul. From the rest of the Life Matters team here in Johannesburg, wassalamu alaikum and goodbye.